folks, last night, vice presidential debate in Virginia. Governor Mike Pence of Indiana, Republican nominee. You also had, of course, Tim Kaine, a Democratic nominee, senator from Virginia. They squared off. The moderator was Elaine Quijano. You wouldn't know because they basically ignored her throughout the debate. They went at it on a variety of issues of importance to this country, whether it was race relations, whether it was the issue of foreign policy, also tax returns, but also a lot of issues when it comes to comments made by Donald Trump that Mike Pence sort of ignored. Here's a roundup of last night's debate.
Here's what I learned as a mayor and a governor. The way you make communities safer and the way you make police safer is through community policing. You build the bonds between the community and the police force, build bonds of understanding, and then when people feel comfortable in their communities, that gap between the police and the communities they serve narrows. And when that gap narrows, it's safe for the communities and it's safer for the police. That model still works across our country, but there are some other models that don't work. An overly aggressive, more militarized model. Donald Trump recently said we need to do more stop and frisk around the country. That would be a big mistake because it polarizes the relationship between the police and the community.
Police officers are the best of us. I mean, men and women, white, African American, Asian, Latino, Hispanic, they put their lives on the line every single day. And let me say, at the risk of agreeing with you, community policing is a great idea. Mm-hmm. It's worked in the Hoosier State, and we fully support that. Donald Trump and I are going to make sure that law enforcement have the resources and the tools to be able to really restore law and order. When an African-American police officer in Charlotte was involved in a police action shooting that claimed the life of Keith Lamont Scott, it was a tragedy. But Hillary Clinton actually referred to that moment as an example of implicit bias in the police force, where she used, when she was asked in the debate a week ago whether there was implicit bias in law enforcement, her only answer was that there's implicit bias in everyone in the United States. I just think what we ought to do is we ought to stop seizing on these moments of tragedy. But Senator, please, enough of this seeking every opportunity to demean law enforcement broadly by making the accusation of implicit bias every time tragedy occurs.
Elaine, people shouldn't be afraid to bring up issues of bias in law enforcement. And if you're afraid to have if you're afraid to have the discussion, you'll never solve it. And so here's an example, heartbreaking. We would agree this is a heartbreaking example. The guy Philando Castile, who was killed in St. Paul, he was a worker, a valued worker in a local school, and he was killed for no apparent reason in an incident that will be discussed and will be investigated. But when folks went and explored this situation, what they found is that Philando Castile, who was they called him Mr. Rogers with dreadlocks in the school that he worked. The kids loved him. That he had been stopped by police 40 or 50 times before that fatal incident. And if you look at sentencing in this country, African Americans and Latinos get sentenced for the same crimes at very different rates.
We need criminal justice reform. Indiana has passed criminal justice
But I just want to say, those who say we should not be able to bring up and talk about bias in the system,
Senator,
will never solve the problem.
When an African-American police officer is involved in a police action shooting involving an African-American, why would Hillary Clinton accuse that African-American police officer of implicit bias?
I guess I can't believe you are defending the position that there is no bias.
All right, folks, let's get down to it. Our pound. Dr. Jason Johnson, political analyst with The Root. We also have, of course, Deanna Bass, partner at Bass Public Affairs. What up? You good?
I'm good.
You ready for this? All right,
I'm
cool.
ready.
Steve Ministerian, attorney and former 3-term Republican state chair of Texas. Dr. Amos Jones-DeWeaver, leadership strategist, author of How Exceptional Black Women Lead. All right, folks, that was just the one question. What's interesting about that, really Pence or Kaine really actually dealt with the issue of race. Pence went on this long a long comment really dealing with the issue of why we keep bringing up implicit bias, this constant defense of law enforcement, if you will. And I'm sitting there going, can you please answer the question, Jason?
He didn't answer any questions all night. I mean, everything he said throughout the entire evening was a pivot and a defense because he's concerned about 2020. But I think what was probably most interesting about the night is the lack of specificity that both of them had for this question. For all the criticisms we can have of Hillary Clinton, she actually said in the first debate, we have to do something about racial discrimination. We have to do something about these issues when it comes to law enforcement. And even Tim Kaine couldn't bring himself to say anything other than implicit bias. Say racism. Say we have to do something about systematic injustice. Be direct. I thought it was a wasted opportunity by both of them.
It was a problem for me. It was a problem for me listening to Pence answer the question, and he touts the endorsement of law enforcement. He talked about how we must respect and how tough a job law enforcement does, and he singles in on a black cop as if there's no implicit bias with even black police officers. I think he totally missed the point about what's happening in this country when it comes to police actions.
I agree. I think that both of the gentlemen did not answer the question. I think that the goal of this debate, though, was to do no harm to their tickets. And so if that is the goal of this debate, then they did the job of dodging throughout the debate in terms of not answering questions. But when you think about the history, the Clintons' history of using race to their advantage throughout their political careers, then I think the team that has the most to answer are the Clintons. No,
actually, I would say who has the most to answer are both individuals, both parties. See, I'm not going to sit and play this game of saying Clintons have more to answer, because the reality is here. You got Indiana Governor Mike Pence, Steve, who is sitting there on this debate talking about compassion, his issue when it comes to his faith. But there's a black man, Keith Cooper, where in Indiana, a pardon board has unanimously said this man should be pardoned for a crime he did not commit, and Mike Pence refuses to grant that. And the problem I have is, Dina, Mike Pence simply would not even remotely address the issue. To shift to law enforcement when the question dealt with the issue of race and police. That's a problem for me, Steve, and it's like he's tone deaf speaking to what is a real issue in America.
Well, I think there's a danger that both sides on this issue are talking at each other instead of with each other. I think a lot of people hear all the criticisms of police officers and they think there's an indictment of all police officers. I think, on the other hand, people listen to people that are criticizing the police and say that they're indicting all the police. The truth is in between, which is that you have good law enforcement, but you also have racial bias that exists in society as a whole, and that spills over to things such as the police departments and individual cops. And I think we need to have a conversation as a society as to how to solve this problem, as opposed to arguing over what the problem is.
But Ava's part of the problem, though, is Mike Pence basically keeps saying, let's stop even talking about it. Stop even bringing it up. Not only that, I thought, again, this is where I thought Kaine, when Pence went on talking about his uncle was a Chicago police officer, if I'm Tim Kaine, I'm saying, yeah, let's talk about the cops in Chicago who flat out lied in the Laquan McDonald case and was only forced to own up to the truth when the videotape was released.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much evidence of actions like that. And you're exactly right. Pence has been on the record of saying, let's just not even talk about institutional racism. That last night, when he was pressed about what, in fact, is inherent bias, he and related that to Senator Scott's reality. He completely ignored that question over and over and over again. The reality is, he's not dumb. This is a very smart and very cunning man. He knows that institutional racism is true. He knows that implicit bias is true. He just does not want to admit it, and he does not want to address the problem at all.
Two of them did spar also over this whole issue of name calling. And Kaine laid out this really tough attack on the Trump-Pence campaign when it came to Trump's comments. Here is that soundbite.
If Donald Trump had said all the things that you said he said in the way you said he said them, he still wouldn't have a fraction of the insults that Hillary Clinton leveled when she said that half of our supporters were a basket of deplorables. She said they were irredeemable, They were not America.
Hillary Clinton said something on the campaign trail, and the very next day she said, you know what, I shouldn't have said that.
She said she shouldn't have said half.
Governor, this is Senator Kane's 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, that's right. So now we're even.
Yeah.
Look for Donald Trump apologizing to John McCain for saying he wasn't a hero. Did Donald Trump apologize for calling women slobs, pigs, dogs, disgusting?
She apologized for saying...
Governor, it is his 2 minutes, please.
Did Donald Trump apologize for taking after somebody in a Twitter war and making fun of her weight? Did he apologize for saying African Americans are living in hell? Did he apologize for saying President Obama was not even a citizen of the United States? You will look in vain to see Donald Trump ever taking responsibility for anybody and apologizing.
You know, Mike Pence sat there and kept shaking his head and said, he even said that Donald Trump didn't say those things. Donald Trump said every single thing that Kane just said.
And this was actually fact checked, I think, by CNN. And Hillary Clinton, so Kane was making the point that Hillary Clinton has apologized for calling a quarter of Americans deplorable and irredeemable. And the more troubling word is irredeemable to me than deplorable. But she actually never apologized. And
okay,
so,
Dina,
I know.
Dina,
No,
we ran down on this particular show numerous polls that show that Trump supporters believe that black folks are lazy, that black folks are criminals, believe that 67 to 70% of Muslims also are terrorists. And so, in fact, we literally ran down 10 different polls. Only one of those polls was under 50%. But the point is this here. Mike Pence in this debate kept saying Trump didn't say those things when he actually did. So it's going to be a little hard for the GOP VP nominee when he getting fact checked to keep denying what Trump actually said.
I don't know that that he was saying that Trump did not say those things.
Yes, he did.
Okay, this is.
He said out of his own mouth, Dina, Trump did not say those things.
Let me get to say something. This is what I think that Pence, even if Trump clearly cannot. We cannot defend him for saying these things.
But Pence said he never said them.
I don't recall Pence saying
I'm sorry, Steve, did you watch the same debate? Did Mike Pence deny Trump making those comments?
He denied that they meant what we're doing is narrowing down. And
no, Dina, that's not what he said. No. Steve, you're a Republican. You watch this debate. Okay. Did Mike Pence deny Trump made those comments?
He denied he made some of the comments, but let me make a point.
Go ahead.
Sometimes there was actually, in the denials of what was said, he was talking about some very specific things. So, for example, when they said that Pence said that Russia's president was better, he used the word stronger. So somebody may say, oh, well, he's denying what he said.
Actually, they got the video.
No, I watched the video.
CBS even showed.
No, I'm right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Jason, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Every single time Tim Kaine mentioned something that we have all seen, heard, documented Donald Trump said, Mike Pence had the shaggy defense. It wasn't me. He didn't say it. No matter what, we heard what he said. And this, but that's the problem. That's the problem. Well, first off, they're not voting for either of these gentlemen directly, but that kind of lying, that kind of blatant lying in the face of obvious facts is a problem. If you say that Vladimir Putin, who throws people in jail consistently for simply disagreeing with him, is a stronger leader than the President of the United States of America, that is a problem. That is exactly the point. That's exactly what he said.
Okay. Go ahead.
Let me finish on this. The quote that they said he said was that he was a better leader. He denied it by saying that it says in the video, which it does, that he was a stronger leader. And so many times...
Are we going to argue between better and stronger? Like a Kanye video, really? Better, stronger, faster? It's the same thing. It is the same thing. He is a stronger leader.
Okay, 1 second. 1 second. Avis.
You're acting as if Donald Trump only said one nice thing about Vladimir Putin. He has been riding Putin's jock the entire time, and you know that. You all know that. So to sit here and act like, oh, well, one time he said he was stronger. What he said about Putin was, he said nice things about me, so I'll say nice things about him. You know good and well that his entire campaign, he has been effusing himself around Putin. So that sit here and act like, oh, my God, this was just one mischaracterization is a blatant lie, quite frankly.
You got 30 seconds and I go to break.
Lie over and over last night.
I think the characterization of Putin, we all know that Putin does bad things. We all know that Russia is not the ideal country. But what the issue is that yes, Russia it doesn't have the economic strength that we have. It doesn't have the spirit that we have. But even in that space, Russia has managed to exert leadership in a way that our nation has not.
By oppressing and killing people.
Call a man a strong leader. And Pence, okay, all right, okay. If you want to keep trying to defend it, go ahead. But it's not the fact.
I'm not trying to defend it. I think that it's unfortunate that you try to box it into what it's not.
I'm just stating what is fact. Okay, hold on. I got to go to a break. I got to